Chapter number 13. Why did I say yes? Why did I say yes to Britney's career? This is a question that has been posed to me by lots of different people over the years. Of course, folks are curious about why I seemingly allowed Britney to do certain things as her career progressed. But some go back farther. They want to know why I said yes to that little girl with the big brown eyes and ribbons in her hair when she begged me to take her to the next dance recital and the competition after that one. That's easy. I said yes to local competitions and then to trying out for the Mickey Mouse Club and then to Star Search and the rest because I wanted to help my daughter make her dream come true. What I didn't know then was exactly what her dream was: to become a pop star like Madonna or Mariah Carey or Whitney Houston. She never said this out loud. She never said this out loud, though, even to me, because it seemed like an impossible wish coming from where we came from. Britney always worked hard, entirely on her own initiative, to reach higher notes or dance her routine more gracefully. Why wouldn't I do what I could, within reason, to facilitate her progress? So I did say yes to a point. If we could help her by driving her to something and taking the time to wait for her and encourage her and watch her as she performed, we would. Of course, our family had jobs and school and church and other things that took priority, but Jamie and I wanted to help our child along the way, just like any parents who have driven hours to a soccer tournament and sacrificed their own weekend plans over and over again for a child. You tell me, what's the difference? I sure wish I knew. In any other area of competition, academics, sports, you name it, if a mother carpools and waits for hours, or heaven forbid, voices concern about the teaching or coaching her child receives, she is an attentive, active parent. But if you take your child to a talent competition or to an audition for a TV show, there's completely different vibe. And when your child actually excels at acting or singing or dancing, watch out. If you utter a peep of dissent or stick up for your child in any way, you'll have the label "stage mom" slapped on you so fast it'll make you dizzy. That label, my friend, is glued on with heavy-duty epoxy that no solvent on this earth can dissolve. Maybe this would be a good time to mention that I have never been a manager for either of the girls, although I was paid for a time to work on Britney's fan club and website. And believe me or not, I was never paid a penny for exclusive interview deals with magazines or anything like that, ever. But let's get back to my real role, Britney's mom, who did agree most of the time to help her determined little girl reach the stars. One thing it was harder to say yes to was the biggest trip we took to Atlanta, when Britney was about 9, to try out for the Mickey Mouse Club show. It was around an 8-hour drive, and I was 8 months pregnant with Jamie Lynne, roly-poly, awkward, and very uncomfortable. We made it in one piece without me going into early labor, and Britney auditioned in front of the casting director Matt Casella, who discovered such Hollywood heavy hitters as Ryan Gosling and Kate Russell. Britney sang Sweet Georgia Brown and threw in some flips from her gymnastics days and some dance moves as well. More than 2,000 children auditioned, but Matt knew right away that both Britney and a girl named Christina Aguilera from Pittsburgh, also 9, had something special. Both girls were too young at that time to be on the show, but Matt told me and Christina's mother that the girls should try it out again in a couple of years. We would be watching for us. He would be watching for us. Matt as a wonderful person and friend to this day. He gave Britney's name to an agent in New York, the lovely Nancy Carson. Nancy suggested we send some footage of Britney to her office. In the video we sent, Britney was singing Shine On Harvest Moon, an old-fashioned tune that displayed the power of the and versatility of her voice. Nancy noted right away that she was struck by the maturity and depth of Britney's vocals for someone that young. We traveled as a family to New York by train to meet Nancy, and she suggested Britney take some vocal and acting classes at the Professional Performing Arts School in the city, in addition to regular classes. After Jamie Lynn was born, the three of us girls, me, Britney, and Jamie Lynn, sought an apartment, and we ended up staying in New York for 4 months after Britney won the part of Laura Bundy's understudy in the off-Broadway production of Ruthless, the musical. It was a spoof of the big Broadway musical, such as Mame and Gypsy, and debuted off-Broadway on March 13, 1992. It closed January 24, 1993, after 342 performances. I know it sounds strange coming from a southern, rural girl who can't stop singing the praises of small-town life, but I loved New York City and its electric energy, and I still do. All my senses were heightened by the lights and the ceaseless hustle, the endless stream of people coming and going never fails to invigorate me, but it was a far cry from life in Kenwood, that's for sure. One incident I'll never forget during our time in New York was a trip we took on the subway one day. Britney and I and baby Jamie Lynn used to get around quite handily on the subway system. Once I got the hang of figuring out the schedules, on this particular occasion, like many others, I was uncomfortable around some of the rougher looking characters on the train. One man especially looked scary, with ragged, dirty clothes, unkempt hair and beard, and a look of dejection hanging on him like a mantle. I actually had been thinking, that cat's a garbage man by day and a serial killer by night. When it was time for us to get off the train, I was trying to hoist 2-month-old Jamie Lynn's stroller with her in it from the train to the platform, and the stroller got stuck in the door. Britney and I started tugging at it, our efforts becoming more desperate as the seconds clicked away. We knew that we had mere moments before the train would start moving, and if we didn't get the stroller untangled, the train would drag the stroller baby and all along with it. This was literally a life or death situation. The really ironic part is that the businessmen in the designer suits just watched us struggle, and not one of them lifted a finger to help. Suddenly, the serial killer, who was on the platform by then, jumped to our aid and quickly jerked the stroller free. Britney and I were crying at that point, horrified by our experience, but when I turned to thank the man for likely saving Jamie Lynn's life, and probably mine too, as I would never have let go of that stroller, he was gone. He had literally vanished within seconds. To this day, I believe he was some kind of an angel. Usually, our everyday life in New York was far from mundane. The three of us would get up early in our little subtle apartment on 48th Street, and Britney would attend classes at Professional Performing Arts School. After school, we would go to the theater where Britney would rehearse her lines. As an understudy, she wasn't on most nights, but on a few different occasions she had to perform. Natalie Portman was the other understudy for the main role of Tina Denmark. Laura Bell Bandy played Tina in the lead role. It would make for long days and late nights. I also missed Brian, who was 14 at that time, so much. He and I would talk by phone daily, and though I worried about him, I felt that he was going in good hands with his daddy, who wasn't drinking at that time. Or so I thought. Turns out Jamie did start drinking again, heavily during those few months, but I didn't find out about it until we were safely at home in Kenwood. Our marriage was already fragile, but my absence, first to New York and later to Orlando, didn't contribute to our split as much as one might think. For most of our life together, Jamie was one off on a job somewhere, not me. And to be honest, I was relieved to escape the tension and the drinking. The main concern for me was that Brian was being taken care of. Besides Jamie, there was a whole infrastructure of friends, family, and neighbors who kept an eye on Brian during this time. Our dear neighbors, the Reeds, also had children at Park Lane Academy, Brian's school, and would shuttle him to his sports events when Jamie couldn't. Plus, my best friend Jill was Jamie's secretary at that time, and she worked out of our home. Brian seemed fine, but that didn't mean I didn't feel torn. It was the first, but not nearly the last time I wanted badly to be in two places at one time. After a few months, it was Christmas time, and while Britney had a great time working on the show up until then, she was starting to show signs of homesickness and fatigue. And so we all. Rehearsal would start at 2 o'clock, and she would have to stay through the performance. Sometimes we wouldn't get home until past midnight. As Christmas approached, she became more and more homesick. She was slated to perform on Christmas Day, and that was a tough call for a little girl, even a born performer like Britney. Then Brian called, and I could sense the strain in his voice and how much he wanted us to come home. That did it. Show or no show, something had to give. I went to Nancy and told her we were struggling with staying in New York, especially Britney, and she was wonderful, immediately reassuring me that she would worry about getting Britney out of the contract and that we should definitely do what was the best for our family. Go home. Mama, can we come? Can we go home? My daughter tiredly asked me that very day. After 4 months in New York, it was time to go back to Louisiana. And once again, I said yes.